I'm WG and this is a CZN character showcase. 10 days is all that's left. Yes, you can use your fingers to count. Today's topic, Luke the Bullet Demon. And before we go into that, we have a video from the official channel which also hints toward a potential buff for Luke, because some people, not me, found him underwhelming during the limited playtest. First, let's check out the combat motion so you have some visual idea of what he's all about, and then we'll talk specifically about what has been changed compared to what we knew from the playtest. Alright, so those were all the cards with all the fancy animations, and our target right here is this, the lethal shot. So, lethal shot, what you can see on this card is not much. Yes, they've redacted the text, but you can see the artwork, and more specifically, you can see the card's cost. This card's cost is crossed out, and what that means is it's a very specific type of card. So, let's talk about it. So, Luke is a 5-star hunter of the Order attribute meaning more damage and tenacity damage, break bar damage against enemies weak to Order, hunters being kind of like your rangers with a variety of offensively tuned abilities, and overall, yeah, that's kind of what hunters are all about. So, here we are, and let's specifically already start talking about deadly rounds before we get into anything else. You can see it clearly there. Here, deadly rounds has a 1 cost at the very top, and the effect before was bullet. Deal damage 100%, increases by 40% equal to the number of bullet cards used this turn. The symbol itself, you can see this like crossed out symbol, can also be found on other units and other cards, like for example Veronica's. These are her bullets, if you want to call them that, and what it stands for is unusable, meaning this card will have some type of effect that triggers without you having to spend AP to trigger it. Like for example, it could be something along the lines of at the end of the turn, deal extra damage based on the number of bullets consumed. So we don't quite know what it does, but in my opinion, there's no way he's going to shift away from the bullet archetype itself, and then it probably also won't go too far from what he has. So the best thing I can come up with is probably just going to be something along the lines of deals X amount of damage based on how many bullets cards you've used this turn at the end of the turn, pretty much freeing up an extra AP because you don't have to spend it on the deadly rounds itself. But let's actually look at what else we have to do, or what we have to deal with here. Due to me upgrading Luke during the closed beta test or limited play test, we already have the potential 1. So the potential is something you can get with 3 resources upgrades. It doesn't really take long. You can get that stuff day 1 if you want to. And that is the bullet tag getting added to the attack cards. But yeah, overall, Luke's basic attacks are 2 shots at 1 cost at 110% or 100% base damage, and then a shield at 100% shield. First special card is Rapid Fire, where you deal 2 instances of damage, and then you create a handgun bullet equal to the number of critical hits, critical chance plus 15%. So the interesting part here is also, if you've paid attention to the trailer, the combat motion showcase we just watched, is he only shot once. There is epiphanies that reduce the bullet count, but they might have also changed the base card. But overall, and also something why I think a lot of people thought he might have been underwhelming, is because you have to play the game longer than just 1 day to actually build crit chance. Without crit chance, you're not hitting as many times, you're not getting as many bullets, not as many bullets meaning you're not doing as much stuff. But what are those bullets anyway, right? We've seen those, we've seen this, but these they are. We have Magnum Shot, Silver Shot, Uranium Shot, and the Tracer. So the Magnum shot just deals, in this case, 71% damage. I think it should be an upgrade due to one of the potentials, but overall it's a relatively weak amount of damage. But not only is it the bullet card with the bullet tag, it is ethereal, meaning if you don't play it, it goes into the, you could say, banished pile, never to be accessed again this fight. And exhausted, which also means the moment you do play it, it also goes into the banished pile. So this is just damage. This one is damage, but you do extra damage if you're effective against the enemy. So if the enemy is weak to order damage, you deal 100% more. Then uranium shot, you deal more damage. If the target has a shield, you deal extra damage. And then the tracer. The tracer applies damage at 30%. And then the mark debuff. The mark debuff means that whenever you use another attack card, it doesn't matter by who, Luke will do an extra attack worth 100% damage. So you can kind of treat this as like 30% damage and triggers one extra attack after an attack card. So these are the 4 shots, and the most important part is they all cost 0, which means no matter how many bullets you generate, you will be able to play every single bullet this turn. So those are the standard bullets, bringing us to Stealth Reload, which just creates 2 handgun bullets. Straight up, easy, straightforward. You pay 1 AP, you get 2 0-cost cards, you can play them out. Seize the Opportunity has the lead tag, meaning that if it is in your hand, there's a 50% chance for it to reduce its cost from 1 down to 0, or by 1, you could say. And then you get a shield at 100% and increases the damage of the next bullet card by 120%. So it is straight up, for example, this bullet would now deal 191% damage, this one would be 171% damage, and the like. You get it. Then we have the Dance of the Demon, deal damage equal to the number of bullet cards used this turn, 50%, and then damage 100%. So you use 5 bullets, that's 250%, an additional 100% on top, so 350% damage with Dance of the Demon. And then Deadly Rounds we've pretty much already talked about, so there we go. You can also notice that Dance of the Demon and Deadly Rounds are pretty similar, but Deadly Rounds itself had, or has, we'll see, the bullet tag. Bringing us to the ultimate. The ultimate is quite straightforward, and it deals 250% damage plus 15% damage for each card in your hand. You can at max have 10 cards in your hand. Being able to create these bullets, obviously, you could say multiplies the cards in your hand. So for example, let's say you have 6 cards in hand. You play the 1 card that creates 2 bullets, all of a sudden you have 7 cards in hand. And that then goes into the multiplication for the lethal design. So this is then the very first epiphany. The rapid fire right here just simply increases the damage multiplier. Here you get an extra shot while reducing the damage multiplier. So you then have 3 chances to get an extra bullet. In the middle you guarantee a crit while increasing the damage, so it's the safest way. The 4th one just reduces the damage, adds the bullet tag to the card, and then lets you deal 50% times 2 damage plus 15% critical chance. The important part here is it does not create any handgun bullets. And then the 5th one, you deal 75% damage times 2, and then you draw cards equal to critical hits instead of actually creating bullets, and it gives you a 30% crit chance. So especially early on, by far the most useful are going to be the one in the middle, guaranteeing you a bullet, the second one guaranteeing you 3 shots, so more chances at getting the critical hit, and then obviously the one in on the 4th spot just naturally being a bullet, as well as getting that crit chance buff. On top of that, we then have Stealth Reload. This is just a cost reduction 2 cost. This is 1 extra bullet. In the middle you have you create 2, and then at the start of the next turn you create 2. So overall you create 4, even though you only use it once, meaning 2 for 1 turn, 2 for the next turn. Then Stealth Reload, at the start of the turn you create 1 bullet for every single turn, and then the last one costing you 2, having the ability to trigger Celestial skills, meaning skills that have the Celestial tag, which get triggered by playing a skill that costs 2 or more. And then Exhaust, meaning the moment you play it, you will only be able to ever use it once through a fight. Overall, the most value you're going to find in a card in the middle, giving you 2 1 turn to the next, the just straight up 3 cost upgrade, or then the Stealth Reload upgrade, giving you 1 bullet every single turn, though I would mostly rely on either the middle or the second one. Then we have Seize the Opportunity with just a higher shield and more damage for the bullet. then more damage for the next 2 bullet cards, which can be quite useful if you use the card from before to just give you 2 bullets, which would then be easily applicable to all these cards. These bullets obviously, or the bullet damage obviously works for every card with the bullet tag, so even your basic attacks if you have the potential. Then in the middle, for 1 turn, you just naturally deal 70% more damage with every bullet. So long as you do 2 bullets or use 2 bullets a turn, it's more valuable than the base version. The 4th one, you increase the damage of the next attack card, so it's more of a support type and easier applicable, but as less of a buff. It's only 100% rather than 120. And then for the last one, when using a bullet card, you gain a shield equal to 40%. This can be quite interesting because, as you might or might not have already noticed, Luke himself has quite a bit of access to shields. So he has the 3rd card giving him shields, the 4th card, or here the 5th card also giving him shields. There is some potential there to be used with, for example, someone like Emir, who just triggers, you could say, a kind of counter attack every time you yourself gain a shield. And then lastly, we have the Dance of the Demon. Deal damage equal to the number of bullet cards used this turn at 80 and then 150. Then right here, number of attack cards instead of bullets, but bullets still count as attack cards, at least the bullets he himself creates. Then a cost reduction, that's all. For the last, or for the 4th upgrade, you have a 50% shield per bullet used, and then also the 50% damage, so you just add a 50% shield into this. And then the other one is a 3 cost, which is quite a fucking lot, and then 50 times 6 damage every time upon using a bullet card, -1 cost. So you could, for example, use 3 bullet cards in a turn and then play a 6 hitter at 50% damage for free at 0 cost. And the important part here is, if you've heard about the morale buff already, the morale buff is kind of your attack buff for this game, and what it does is it increases the multiplier by 20% additively, meaning 20%, not for example 20% buff would here only be a 10% buff because it's 50%, no, you just put 50% on top. The important part is that is not, or it's way more effective on cards that have a multiplier. So for example, if you have a 50% card and put 20% on top and it's 1 hit, it's 70%, so 20% additional. But if it's a 6 hitter, that's 120% extra damage just through adding 20% onto it. So the Dance of the Demon, the 5th one is really, really nice. The 2nd one is kind of not quite what we're going for with him. The 4th one can help with shield generation and overall has a lot of synergy with other units that rely on shields, on gaining shields, on using shields like Maribel, like Magna, like Emir. So he is also kind of the type of DPS that can just go with the tank, with the Vanguard. So for example, it would then be a Luke, a Magna, or a Maribel, or an Emir, and then as your other support, you would either run like a Nia for extra damage for the morale, so that his bullet cards deal more damage. That is very important because the bullet cards also have a rather low multiplier, but they cost you nothing, they cost you 0. Or even someone like a Cassius for a lot of card draw, or then I guess Mika if you need the AP and really just want to focus all you have on Luke. This brings us to, as we talked about, potential one, and that is you add the bullet tag. Overall, also important to note, Luke has every character has a very extensive potential tree, and the potential tree itself towards the later levels, towards more investment, gives Luke natural crit rate, meaning you will be able to land more crits, generating more bullets, overall generating more value. And this then brings us to the A1. So what the A1 does is it gives you, when drawn, create 1 handgun bullet in hand. Straight up for free, you just need to draw deadly rounds and you already get 1 card that would increase the damage of this for 40%. Now the important part here again is we'll have to see, because they did already show us that they've taken deadly rounds and that they've tweaked it. Maybe it now still is a pullable card, maybe it's an unpullable card, maybe it's a permanent card. We have to see. But this one still, no matter what, should probably go in the direction of creating more bullets. This is the then A2, the third copy of Luke total. When Luke uses a bullet card 3 times, you create 2 handgun bullet cards in hand. Cards created this way have damage negative 50% triggers once per turn. What that means is so long as you have 3 bullet cards you play a turn, you can easily play 5. And that is going to go into any other further multipliers. I know it might not sound the best, but seeing as like at some point you will be able to get high copies for every single standard character, so long as you just play the game and you get shafted on banners and whatnot, his awakenings are some of those that I'm really looking forward to the most, as dumb as it sounds. Here we just have an increase to 25 damage for each card in hand. Also, I'm not quite sure, but I feel like they might tweak some of these modifiers, because even with this, even with 10 cards in hand, this is only 500% damage, which could be a little weaker compared to the amount of setup you have to take and amount of ego, currency you have to invest. Fourth upgrade, whenever Luke, the reason why this is the fourth one is because the third copy of a unit for the 5 stars gives you 6% extra stats to every single card, and the 4th, 5th and 6th are special in that regard though, because in comparison to 4 stars you have 5 unique talents and 1 stat increase instead of 4 unique talents and 2 stat increases. So here, whenever Luke uses a bullet card, you gain target analysis. For 1 turn, Luke's bullet card damage plus 10%. First bullet card, 10%. Second bullet card, 20%. Third card, 30%. Fourth card, 40%. And then as long as you've played 3 bullet cards, you naturally go to 5. So that's then the last bullet, or the last 2 even, getting the full 40% stat bonus and any other bullets after. Bringing us to let me see, is that the A6? Yeah, I think this might be the A6. Yeah. The stat upgrade. I'm sorry. The stat upgrade is actually, so the 6% damage to all cards is actually on the A5. So the 6th copy, whereas the 3rd copy actually increases the ultimate. My bad there. But that brings us to something very special, and that is changes the damage bonus from target analysis to plus 15%, and whenever 12 handgun bullet cards are used, create 1 high velocity AP round card in hand. So what this is talking about, it is referring to this. The target analysis is now dealing 15% more bullet damage per bullet, so it goes up to 60% rather than 40%, and then you every 12 bullets create this beauty right here, the high velocity AP round, 200% damage straight up, guaranteed critical attack weakness, meaning you are guaranteed to weak hit no matter what element the target is. This is my dream. This is my fantasy. Luke, 7 copies. How long shall you take me to get you? Like, oi, 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 oi. So his upgrades are really spicy. They do build up on top of each other and they become ever and ever so stronger. But don't get me wrong, base form Luke is already pretty damn awesome. Peace.